Before Jesus entered Jerusalem for the final time, he did something that changed everything, not just for him, but for human history. The secret alignment Jesus performed before riding into the city, before the crowds, before the palm branches, before the confrontation with the temple authorities, that preparation was deliberately removed from Christian teaching. What Jesus did on the Mount of Olives wasn't just prayer, it wasn't just preparation, it was a specific internal alignment that positioned him to face betrayal, torture, and death without wavering. This pre-Jerusalem alignment gave him the strength to walk willingly into what he knew was coming, and the method, the interior practice Jesus used to align himself before the most important week of his life, was suppressed. Hidden from public teaching because it revealed something too powerful, that you can prepare for your darkest hour by entering a state where suffering loses its power over you. By the end of this video, you'll understand what Jesus did before entering Jerusalem, why it was removed from Christian teaching, and how you can access the same unshakable alignment when facing your own trials. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now. These teachings challenge 2,000 years of institutional theology. The algorithm doesn't favor content that reveals what was hidden. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because this is just the beginning of what was taken from you. This is the secret alignment, and you're about to discover it. You know the story of Palm Sunday. You've heard it 100 times, maybe more. Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a donkey. The crowds line the streets, waving palm branches, shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." They spread their cloaks on the ground before him. They celebrate him as the Messiah, the King who will restore Israel. It's a moment of triumph, of public recognition, of glory. And then within days, it all collapses. The same crowds turn against him. The religious leaders arrest him. The disciples flee. Peter denies him. Judas betrays him. And Jesus is tortured, mocked, and crucified. That's the story you were given, the narrative arc, triumph to tragedy to resurrection. But what you were never told, what was carefully edited out of the way this story has been taught for centuries, is what Jesus did before that entry into Jerusalem. Not just the logistics of sending disciples to get a donkey, not just the prophetic fulfillment of Zechariah 9:9, but the interior work, the alignment, the preparation that allowed him to walk into the city knowing exactly what was coming, knowing he would be abandoned, tortured, and killed, and still moving forward with absolute clarity and peace. Because here's what the Gospels make clear, if you're paying attention. Jesus knew what was about to happen. Luke 18:31-33, he took the 12 aside and said to them, See, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written about the Son of Man by the prophets will be accomplished. For he will be delivered over to the Gentiles and will be mocked and shamefully treated and spit upon. And after flogging him, they will kill him, and on the third day he will rise. He knew. He told them explicitly. This wasn't a surprise. This wasn't something that went wrong. He was walking willingly into his own execution. And the question nobody asks is, how? How do you walk into your own death with that kind of clarity? How do you face betrayal, abandonment, torture, and crucifixion without running, without collapsing, without losing yourself to fear? You align, and Jesus performed a specific alignment before entering Jerusalem that made all of it possible. That alignment was removed from Christian teaching. And for 2,000 years you've been told that Jesus could do it because he was God, because he had a divine nature you don't have, because he was special in a way you could never be. But that's not what the Gospels actually say, and it's not what the early church taught. What they taught, before it was suppressed, was that Jesus showed you how to do what he did, that the alignment he entered before Jerusalem is the same alignment available to you before your darkest hour, and now you're going to learn it. Go back to the Gospel accounts, not the Palm Sunday story itself, but what happens immediately before it. Luke 19:28-29. And when he had said these things, he went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. When he drew near to Bethphage and Bethany at the mount that is called Olivet, he sent 2 of the disciples. Wait, stop there. The Mount of Olives. That phrase appears over and over in the Gospel accounts, especially in the final week of Jesus' life. It's not just a geographical marker, it's a pattern. Jesus doesn't just pass through the Mount of Olives. He returns to it again and again. It's where he stays during that final week. It's where he goes to pray. It's where he withdraws before and after his public ministry in Jerusalem. Luke 21:37. And every day he was teaching in the temple, but at night he went out and lodged on the mount called Olivet. Every night. After teaching all day in the temple, after confronting the Pharisees, after cleansing the temple and overturning the money changers' tables, he withdrew to the Mount of Olives. And it's on the Mount of Olives, in the Garden of Gethsemane, that Jesus faces his final crisis, where he prays so intensely that his sweat becomes like drops of blood, where he asks the Father if there's any other way, where he surrenders, not my will, but yours be done. But here's what you were never taught. Gethsemane wasn't the first time Jesus aligned himself on the Mount of Olives. It was the final alignment, the culmination of a practice he'd been performing throughout that entire week. Because before he ever entered Jerusalem, before the triumphal entry, before the crowds shouted Hosanna, Jesus went to the Mount of Olives and performed the alignment that would carry him through everything that was coming. And that alignment had 3 movements, 3 interior shifts that transformed how he held what was about to happen. This is what was removed. The first movement of the secret alignment is this: you must face what's coming without denial. Most people, when they know something terrible is approaching, go into denial. They avoid thinking about it. They distract themselves. They hope somehow it won't happen, that circumstances will change, that they'll be spared. Jesus didn't do that. He told his disciples exactly what was coming. He spoke about it openly, repeatedly. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't minimize it. They will mock me. They will flog me. They will kill me. Not maybe, not possibly, will. And in that facing, in that absolute clarity about what was ahead, something powerful happened. The future lost its power to terrorize him. Because fear doesn't come from what's actually happening. Fear comes from the unknown, from the imagination running wild with worst-case scenarios, from the mind's refusal to look directly at what's real. But when you turn toward what's coming, when you name it, when you see it clearly, when you stop running from the knowledge, something shifts. The thing you're afraid of becomes just a thing. A series of events. Painful, yes. Difficult, yes. But no longer this massive, undefined terror lurking in the shadows of your awareness. Jesus faced it. He looked directly at betrayal, at abandonment, at torture, at death. And in that looking, he took away fear's primary weapon, the unknown. This is the first movement of the secret alignment, and it's why Jesus kept telling his disciples what was coming, not because he wanted to traumatize them, but because he was demonstrating the practice. Look at what's coming. Name it. Face it. Don't turn away. Modern Christianity tries to skip this step. It teaches you to have faith that everything will work out, to trust that God will protect you, to believe that if you're faithful enough, you won't have to suffer. But that's not what Jesus taught. He didn't promise his disciples protection from suffering. He promised them that suffering would come, and that if they aligned themselves properly, they could walk through it without being destroyed. That alignment begins with facing. The second movement of the secret alignment is this: you must release your attachment to outcomes. This is where most people break. Because even if you can face what's coming, you still want to control it. You still want to change it. You still believe that if you pray hard enough, believe strongly enough, or are faithful enough, you can alter the outcome. Jesus released that. In Gethsemane, he prayed, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours, be done." That prayer is often taught as an example of submission, of obedience, and it is. But it's more than that. It's a demonstration of the second movement of alignment. Jesus was saying, I don't want this. I'm not pretending I want to suffer. I'm not spiritualizing pain and calling it good. I'm acknowledging that every part of my human nature wants to escape what's coming. But I'm releasing my need to control the outcome. Not because he was weak, not because he was resigned, but because he understood something most people never grasp. Attachment to outcomes is what creates suffering. Pain is inevitable. But suffering, the internal anguish, the resistance, the sense that things shouldn't be this way, that comes from attachment, from the insistence that reality must match your preferences. When Jesus released the outcome, when he said, "But not my will, but yours," he wasn't giving up. He was letting go of the attachment that would have made the coming events unbearable. He was saying, I will walk through this, I will face it, but I'm not going to carry the additional weight of demanding that it be different than it is. And in that release, a profound peace became possible. Not the peace of things going well, the peace of alignment with reality itself, regardless of what that reality contains. This is the second movement. And it's the one most Christians never learn, because they're taught that faith means believing God will change your circumstances, not that faith means aligning with God's will even when your circumstances don't change. But Jesus demonstrated the truth. Freedom doesn't come from controlling what happens. It comes from releasing your attachment to what happens. And once he released that attachment, he could enter Jerusalem with absolute clarity, not hoping for a different outcome, not secretly believing the Father would intervene and spare him, but fully aligned with what was coming, prepared to walk through it without resistance. The third movement of the secret alignment is this: you must anchor your identity in what cannot be taken from you. This is the deepest part, the part that was most carefully removed from Christian teaching. Because when you face what's coming and you release the outcome, you're left with a question: who am I in the midst of this? If everything can be taken, my reputation, my relationships, my body, my life, then what remains? Jesus knew the answer, and it's why he could walk to his death without losing himself. Throughout the Gospels, especially in John, Jesus repeatedly anchors his identity not in his human circumstances, but in his union with the Father. John 10:30, I and the Father are one. John 14:10, I am in the Father and the Father is in me. John 17:21, that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you. This wasn't theology, this was lived reality. Jesus knew, not believed, not hoped, but knew, that his true identity was not the body that could be tortured, not the reputation that could be destroyed, not the life that could be taken. His true identity was the consciousness united with God. The awareness that existed before his body was born and would continue after his body died, the eternal self that could witness suffering without being destroyed by it. And before entering Jerusalem, Jesus anchored himself in that identity so completely that nothing that happened to his body could touch who he really was. This is the secret that was removed, because if you know how to anchor in eternal identity, if you discover that who you really are cannot be threatened by anything the world does to your body or your circumstances, then you become dangerous. Not dangerous in the sense of violence, dangerous in the sense of uncontrollable. The institutional church, the Roman Empire, every power structure that has ever existed, they all depend on fear. They control people by threatening what they think they are: their bodies, their reputations, their security, their lives. But if you know that your true identity is the consciousness united with God, if you anchor there so completely that you can watch your own crucifixion without losing yourself, then there's nothing they can threaten you with. You become free, truly free. And that kind of freedom terrifies institutions. So they removed it. They turned Jesus' demonstration of anchoring in eternal identity into a doctrine about his unique divine nature. They taught you that Jesus could do it because he was God in a way you're not. But that's not what Jesus taught. He explicitly said you could do everything he did, and greater things, John 14:12. He wasn't showing you something only he could do. He was showing you who you really are. And the third movement of the secret alignment, anchoring in eternal identity before walking into your trial, is available to you right now. By the time Christianity became the official religion of Rome in the 4th century, the empire needed something very specific: obedient subjects. They needed people who feared death, who feared loss, who could be controlled through threats and promises. And the teachings of Jesus, especially the secret alignment he demonstrated before Jerusalem, were incompatible with that need, because someone who has faced what's coming, released attachment to outcomes, and anchored in eternal identity cannot be controlled. You can threaten them with death, and they'll say, "This body is not who I am." You can threaten them with loss, and they'll say, "I'm not attached to outcomes." You can threaten them with suffering, and they'll say, "I've already faced what's coming, and I'm aligned with it." The early Christian martyrs demonstrated this. They walked into arenas to face lions with the same peace Jesus had walking to Golgotha. Not because they were masochistic, not because they didn't value life, but because they had learned the secret alignment. They knew who they really were, and knowing that, they couldn't be controlled through fear. But the institutional church couldn't have millions of people walking around with that kind of freedom. They needed people who feared hell, who feared excommunication, who needed the church to mediate their relationship with God. So they removed the teaching. They kept the story of Jesus' courage, but removed the method. They celebrated his sacrifice, but hid the alignment that made it possible. They turned it into theology. Jesus died for your sins. He could do it because he was God. You're just human. You're weak. You need grace. You need the church. And for 2,000 years, Christians have celebrated Jesus' courage while never learning how to access it themselves, until now. So how do you practice the secret alignment? How do you prepare for your own Jerusalem? Whatever trial, loss, or suffering you know is coming. You follow the 3 movements Jesus demonstrated. Movement 1, face what's coming. Sit in silence, not in prayer yet, not in meditation, just in honest presence with yourself, and ask, what am I afraid of? What's coming that I've been avoiding thinking about? Maybe it's a medical diagnosis. Maybe it's a relationship ending. Maybe it's financial collapse. Maybe it's your own death, which you know is inevitable, but have never truly faced. Whatever it is, stop running from it. Turn toward it. Look at it directly. Not to wallow in it, not to catastrophize, but to see it clearly, to name it, to take away its power to lurk in the shadows of your awareness. Say it out loud if you need to. I'm afraid of Hog. I know Ak is coming. In that facing, something shifts. The terror loses some of its power, because what you can name you can face, and what you can face no longer controls you from the shadows. Movement 2. Release the outcome. Now, with what you're facing held clearly in your awareness, practice the prayer Jesus prayed. Father, I don't want this. Every part of me wants to escape it, change it, control it, but I release my attachment to the outcome. Not my will, but yours. Not my preferences, but what is. This isn't resignation. It's not giving up. It's releasing the additional suffering that comes from demanding reality be different than it is. You're saying, I will face what comes. I will walk through it, but I will not carry the weight of insisting it shouldn't be happening. Feel what that release does in your body. Feel the subtle relaxation when you stop fighting reality, when you stop trying to control what you cannot control. That relaxation is the beginning of peace, not the peace of good circumstances, but the peace of alignment with reality itself. Movement 3. Anchor in eternal identity. This is the deepest movement, the one that requires practice. Still sitting in silence, shift your awareness from what's happening to who's witnessing what's happening. Not your thoughts about yourself, not your story, not your identity as a body with a name and a history, but the awareness itself. The consciousness that's reading these words right now, the presence that was there when you were 5 years old and will be there in your final moment. But the awareness itself, the consciousness that's reading these words right now, the presence that was there when you were 5 years old and will be there in your final moment. That awareness, that consciousness is not threatened by what happens to your body or your circumstances. It cannot be tortured. It cannot be killed. It cannot be diminished. It is the part of you that is one with God, the eternal self, the Christ consciousness dwelling in you. And when you anchor there, when you rest in that awareness so completely that you know it's your true identity, everything changes. You can face anything, not because you're strong, but because you know that who you really are cannot be touched by what happens to the false self, the temporary self, the body-mind self. Breathe into that awareness. Rest there. Let yourself remember, this is who I am. Not the thoughts, not the fears, not the body that will one day die, but this awareness, this consciousness, this presence that has always been here. From that place, you can walk into Jerusalem. You can face your trial. You can walk through your darkest hour without losing yourself, because you've already found yourself, and what you've found cannot be taken. Now you can understand what was really happening in Gethsemane. The traditional teaching says Jesus was afraid, that he was struggling, that he was asking the Father to spare him because his human nature was weak. But that's not what was happening. Jesus had already performed the alignment. He'd already faced what was coming. He'd already walked this path in his awareness before walking it with his feet. What was happening in Gethsemane was the final anchoring, the last deep breath before diving into the depths. He was checking his alignment, making sure he was still rooted in eternal identity, making sure the attachment to outcomes was fully released, making sure he was facing reality with absolute clarity. Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. That's not weakness, that's honesty. That's acknowledging the human desire to escape suffering without letting that desire control him. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. That's the release, the full surrender, not to suffering itself, but to reality itself, to the Father's will, to what is. And then, Luke tells us, an angel appeared to strengthen him. Not because he was collapsing, but because the alignment was complete. The support he needed, not to avoid what was coming, but to walk through it, was there. And he rose. He woke his sleeping disciples, and he walked toward his betrayer with absolute clarity and peace, because the alignment was complete. You have your own Jerusalem. We all do. Maybe it's not as dramatic as crucifixion. Maybe it's the slow death of a dream, the loss of someone you love, the collapse of everything you built, the diagnosis that changes everything. Or maybe it's simply the ultimate Jerusalem we all face, your own death, which is coming whether you're ready or not. And the question is, will you walk toward it aligned, or will you spend your remaining days in denial, in resistance, in the suffering that comes from refusing to face reality? Jesus showed you another way, the way of alignment. Face what's coming. Don't turn away. Don't pretend it's not happening. Look at it directly and take away fear's power. Release the outcome. Stop demanding that reality match your preferences. Let go of the attachment that creates suffering on top of pain. Anchor in eternal identity. Remember who you really are. Not the body that dies, but the consciousness that witnesses the body, the awareness that is one with God, and cannot be threatened by anything that happens in time. This is the secret alignment, and it's available to you right now, not as theology, not as something to believe, but as something to practice, to embody, to live from, so that when your Jerusalem comes, and it will come, you can walk toward it the way Jesus did, with clarity, with peace, with the unshakable knowing that who you really are cannot be touched by what's about to happen. Even though this teaching was removed from institutional Christianity, it didn't disappear completely. The Christian mystics preserved it. The Desert Fathers practiced it. The contemplatives lived it. St. John of the Cross wrote about the dark night of the soul, not as something to avoid, but as the Jerusalem you must walk through to discover your true identity. Meister Eckhart taught about the eternal now, where suffering has no power, because time itself is seen as illusion. Teresa of Avila described the interior castle, where you retreat to find the self that cannot be disturbed by outer circumstances. They were all teaching the same thing, the secret alignment Jesus demonstrated before Jerusalem. But they had to hide it in mystical language, in poetry, in writings that could be dismissed as too esoteric for ordinary believers. Because if they taught it plainly, they'd be accused of heresy. Some of them were anyway. Meister Eckhart was tried by the Inquisition. John of the Cross was imprisoned by his own religious order. The mystics have always been dangerous to institutions because they teach freedom, and freedom cannot be controlled. But now the teaching is returning, not through institutions, but through individuals like you who are ready to remember what was always true. You are not who you think you are. You are not this body, this story, this temporary self. You are the awareness witnessing it all, the consciousness united with God, the eternal self that can walk through any Jerusalem without being destroyed. And once you know that, once you anchor there, everything changes. Let's practice this together right now. You don't need to wait for your Jerusalem to come. You can cultivate the alignment today so that when the trial arrives, you're already prepared. Close your eyes if you're able. Take 3 slow, deep breaths. First movement, facing. Bring to mind something you've been avoiding, something you know is coming or something you fear might come. Don't force it. Just let it arise naturally. Now instead of pushing it away, turn toward it. Look at it. Name it in your awareness. I'm facing peak. Feel what happens when you stop running, when you stop denying, when you simply acknowledge what is or what might be. Second movement, releasing. Now. With whatever you're facing held in your awareness, say internally, I release my attachment to controlling this outcome. Not my will, but yours. Not my preferences, but what is. Feel the subtle shift, the relaxation, the peace that comes not from things going well, but from no longer fighting reality. Third movement, anchoring. Now shift your attention from what you're facing to who is facing it. Feel the awareness that's witnessing this moment, the consciousness that's here, present, alive. This awareness was here before the thing you're afraid of existed. It will be here after it's past. It cannot be threatened. It cannot be diminished. This is your true identity. Rest here, anchor here. And from this place, notice, you can face anything. not because you're strong, but because you're rooted in what cannot be shaken. This practice, the secret alignment Jesus used before Jerusalem, is just the beginning. There's more to learn. How to maintain the alignment in the midst of the storm, not just before it. How to return to eternal identity when you lose it in the chaos. How to walk through your crucifixion and trust in resurrection. We've gathered the deeper teachings in the sacred scrolls, the practices the mystics used, the prayers that anchor you in eternal identity, the wisdom that was removed because it made you too free to control. If you're ready to walk the path Jesus walked, not just to admire him, but to embody what he demonstrated, the scrolls will take you deeper. You'll find them in the description below. And if you want to practice this alignment with others who are preparing for their own Jerusalem, who are learning to face what's coming with clarity and peace, we've created a community for that, not for theology, not for debate, but for practice, for walking together through the dark nights and the trials, anchored in the truth of who we really are. The link is in the description. But whether you go deeper or stop here, you now know the secret. You've learned what Jesus did before entering Jerusalem. You understand the alignment that made it possible for him to face betrayal, torture, and death without losing himself, and that same alignment is available to you. For 2,000 years, Christians have celebrated Jesus' courage on Palm Sunday and Good Friday without understanding how he cultivated that courage. They've been told he could do it because he was God in a way you're not, that his divine nature made him capable of things you could never do. But that's not what Jesus taught. He didn't come to show you how special he was. He came to show you who you really are. And what he demonstrated before entering Jerusalem, the secret alignment that allowed him to walk willingly into his darkest hour, is the same alignment available to you before yours. Face what's coming. Release the outcome. Anchor in eternal identity. These three movements transform how you hold suffering. They don't remove the pain, but they remove the suffering that comes from resistance, from attachment, from forgetting who you really are. And when you practice this alignment daily, when you cultivate it before your trial arrives, you'll discover what Jesus discovered. That you can walk through anything. That who you really are cannot be touched by what happens to the temporary self. That the peace you've been seeking doesn't come from circumstances going well, but from alignment with reality itself. This is the secret alignment. It's been hidden for 2,000 years, and now you found it. Not because I gave it to you, but because you were ready to remember what you've always known. You are not who you think you are. You are so much more. And your Jerusalem, whatever it is not the end. It's the doorway to discovering who you've always been. Walk through it, aligned, and watch what happens on the other side.